it's true that that passing on of knowledge, when you think about it, especially with growing food, we've been doing that for generation after generation after generation, because obviously agriculture and growing food is essential. Now these days things are a little different, and that's one of the reasons we're talking to you today. A lot of people are losing touch with that feeling, even just that feeling alone that you're describing of like, once you've had a homegrown tomato, you never want to go back to anything else, because you can feel the difference. Um and it's absolutely amazing for sure, and we would like more people to reconnect with that. So I know that you were mentioning quite a few things, that so you have that knowledge. What would be an advice, and maybe you can tell us like a couple of vegetables that you could say are the easiest, so to speak, to get started, to someone who does not have access from their family or surroundings to that knowledge? What would you advise these people to do to get started, to reconnect like that?
Well, the best thing, even if they don't have, and this is again from my experience, each person has his own experience, and so they can share. But for my experiences, I have a limited, I live in an apartment, and now the space that I have extremely limited. So what do? I buy, for example, bags of topsoil and make holes in them and put seeds. The best thing for the people, if they like green beans is easy to grow, very easy to grow, and they give a lot. One plant can give you a whole meal of the green beans, and the tomatoes as well. So they don't need even to bother to dig the ground or do anything if they don't want to. So that's my advice. And then with that, for example, that topsoil bag, they can plant potato. And the potato, you don't have to buy the potato itself. When you have potato, for example, start sprouting, take that potato and plant it. Don't throw it, because that one would be the root for the bigger potato.
So you said you live in an apartment. Does that mean that your plants, and you said you put your plants outside because that is a must, obviously, yes, for photosynthesis with the sun. There's no replacing that. Do you have a balcony? How much space do you have available like that?
No, I have, let's say, 16 feet on one side and 12 feet on the other side. But I need the east and west much more, because the sun, I need the sun, especially in the summertime. In the Midwest, it's not like the east. The east, we have sun at least 6 months a year. That's if not more.
She owns the whole apartment complex.
Yeah.
Okay.
She plants on one side of it.
Yeah. So you do have access to the outside like that. But you did mention that you can grow certain plants very easily from a bag of topsoil. So that is good advice anyway for people that live in smaller areas that maybe only have a balcony or a front porch.
Yes. If, for example, just if a person has a balcony and he doesn't need to bother with the soil, yes. Take, for example, a short table, put on that short table, I'm talking about short table about few inches height, put the bag and plant your own things. You can plant tomato, you can plant cucumber, and you can plant beans. And even if you like potato, you can grow potato.
So you are not using a pot. You're literally opening the bag and planting the seeds from the bag, or are you planting the seeds in a pot using topsoil?
Well, both. But for the bag, as a matter of fact, no, I make holes in the bag and put seeds in the bag. And
that's what I thought. Interesting.
yes, because the moist, the plant is just like greenhouse without being in greenhouse. You protect the roots, and then you cultivate the fruit.
Mm-hmm. And a question I wanted to ask, and you've been mentioning obviously planting seeds. By now, I'm assuming that maybe you can reuse your own plants to keep growing things. But if and when you have to buy seeds, do you have any advice on what to look out for? What kind of provenance? Because there's seeds and there's seeds. So in terms of like quality, do you have any little advice on that?
The seeds, again, every person has its own preference, but the seeds, I look for a place that they sell a lot. For example, if I want seeds, vegetable seeds, I would look for, let's say, greenhouses, or if not greenhouses, it's not a commercial or advertisement for, we have Lowe's and we have Menards. Especially in seasons, they sell a lot of seeds. Other places, for example, if I go to Kroger, I cannot guarantee that their seeds is as fresh as because people, they don't look for Kroger for seeds.
Right.
Or Giant Eagle or something. So for me, I go to places that they have lots of buying power for the seeds or bulbs or whatever.
A place that's partially specialized in that.
Yes, because, but on the other hand, as you said, for example, I bought one bag of flowers. I planted them in a pot and then separate them in the summertime. And now I collect their seeds and store it. So.
And then you have your own seeds from your own plant, which is like eating your own. I mean, you're still eating your own food, but I'm assuming there's that pleasure of knowing the quality, knowing where the plant comes from, and the nutrients are in there because you're in charge of all that.
Yeah, and again, if a person, let's say, if you have a rotted tomato, rotted tomato, all you have to do is just stick that rotted tomato in the soil in a pot, and you will have plenty of plants.
Really?
Really?
And tomatoes need the sun, though, so that's one limitation I guess people might have, is even if they have a little piece of outdoor that they can use, it also has to have the right orientation. You mentioned east.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Can I ask a question, Dr. Ramahi?
Oh, please.
What advice do you have for people? We have a similar climate, I'd imagine, to where you are. If we want to try to do that with food scraps over the winter, are there any things we could do right now, even though it's not as sunny, that we could start on?
Well, if it is in the winter, as Ahmed bought me, light for the plants. If really a person has space or has balcony or has a sunny window, he or she can plant with those artificial lights.
Mm-hmm. So doing it inside, but you said it's not quite as good. It doesn't taste quite the same, but technically you can still do that inside.
Oh, yes, you still can. Yeah, you still can.
So I know that urban gardening is definitely something that is either growing or people are talking more and more. So I think probably both anyway. So you have these community gardens, and I wonder what your opinion is on community gardens, because I also think in terms of learning and getting that knowledge from people who are experienced, that could be potentially a place for new beginners to go and actually learn from maybe more seasoned gardeners in these community gardens.
Yes, it's true. For example, when I grew up and when we were in school, elementary school and things like that, because the Palestinian people, they were agricultural people, much more than industrial. There are some industry in certain cities, but let's say 60% of the people, agricultural people, farming people. farming communities.
Mm.
In school, they used to keep, let's say, few square footage for the students to plant.
Yeah.
And I remember we planted wheat, and we planted carrots, and we planted the carrot seeds, and then we separate within them. We planted lettuce. So this, exactly as you said, when you introduce that action to kids, they definitely would grow up appreciating that, and they will try it.
What's really interesting is you're saying it right now culturally. How beautiful is that? And it's definitely not something we do here. So it shows about cultural priorities and things like that. Even though you did not grow on a farm, you still learn about all these things beyond your parents' experience at school. Your education was incorporating growing food, which when you think about it, that's a must, right? This is so important. But a lot of societies now, at least as far as we're concerned with the US here, we are never taught that. And I really think there's a problem here where a lot of young people, the younger generations, they don't know, but sometimes they don't even realize they don't know where food comes from. And it sounds like such a crazy
Yes.
thing to say.
Correct. Yes.
And so
even
a big question. Sorry, what?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
A big question that I wanted to come to, obviously, because we're talking about growing food, but the goal here with food is for sustenance. It's not just because it's yummy. It is for fuel, for energy. It's for life. So it is for health. And I wanted to ask you, how do you think growing your own food and having that knowledge and that connection with the natural way for food to grow, etc., how does that affect your health?
Well, I believe it really affects the health the positive way, because first of all, when a person grows his own food, no pesticides, no diseases, nothing that would affect his health. And when a person eats non-processed food, whole food, it's definitely had a better side effect than if we compare the city person to the farmer who really works and grow up his own food and cook his own food. Come to the person that he owns an office and blah blah, depend on all the processed food. By the time they hit 60, there's a big difference between the farmer and the, let's say, city dwellers that he doesn't know anything about it. So it reduces or minimize the diseases, fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, fresh air as well, because the air, when you go outside, now most of the doctors, they advise you to go outside, exercise, and all of these things. Now, for a farmer, this comes naturally. He has to do it. He doesn't know. He doesn't do it because, I need to be healthy. No, it's exactly as you said, to sustain his family. And that would be a help for the future generation, because the land is getting so scarce that we have to really utilize it the right way.
One thing for sure that came up in the research that our chapter did for this year's project, and that's why we're talking about like food, healthy diet, growing food, and so agriculture in a more general way too. Something big that's coming that seems to be a trend, but in this past century, it's very recent, is that the way that we're doing maybe too intensively agriculture to feed a lot of people, we are getting to be a lot of people for sure, but the way that we grow like that is depleted in the soil. And that's why I was asking you a few questions, because usually when you go back to more traditional old methods, or when you look at people like you who grow their own food, you can see the differences that like soil health is obviously primordial, because the plant gets the nutrients from the soil, but everything needs to be cycled through. Otherwise, you're just depleting. And that is an issue we're seeing with the modern agriculture, where the soil gets so depleted and the same plant used again and again, that eventually we are losing land, because it dies eventually, so to speak. It cannot no longer produce life, and so this is a big issue for sure for all of us, especially as our population globally is growing, with more people to feed and less land to grow food. So I'm very glad that we've had this discussion today, because you're showing your experience that you shared is showing people how you can more simply just go back to healthy food, to almost the way it's supposed to be. That's what you've always experienced. But you have a lot of people that are not so lucky and don't have that relationship with food. Do you have a few final words that you would want to say, or advices that you would want to share?
Well, all I can say is thank you, and wish you the best of luck and more success. And as we say, inshallah, God willing, you will give a beautiful lesson to everybody. Just keep going.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for sharing.